All right, welcome everybody. It is 6:01 p.m. Andrea Davis, Mayor here, and I'll go ahead and call our Missoula City Council meeting to order for August 10th, 2026. And before we get started with the agenda, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. All right. Thank you. Welcome to all council members and members of the public that are here in the audience, as well as folks that are online. We'll start with a roll call, please. Ms. Trimble.
All right, beginning this evening's roll call with Anderson.
Present.
Becerra.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Krask.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
McCoy.
Here.
Nelson.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Ponton.
Present.
Savage.
Present.
And Cheryl.
Present.
We have a quorum and everyone is present.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up, we do have approval of minutes from July 27th, 2026. Do any council members have any questions or changes to those council minutes? Okay. Not seeing any, then those minutes will remain as submitted. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is any announcements to changes to our upcoming committee meeting agendas and committee membership approvals. Ms. Trimble, do we have any updates and highlights for our committee schedule for this coming Wednesday, August 12th?
No changes from what was published on Friday. We are having a later start around 11 a.m. To accommodate another morning conflict.
Great. Thank you very much. And all of the committee agendas and correlating items are on the Missoula City Council webpage. All right. Agenda item number 4 is for special presentations and proclamations. A lot of times we have neighborhood council updates, or I'll read some proclamations, but we don't have any this evening. So no neighborhood council updates and no special proclamations this evening. So that brings us right to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And thank you very much. This first period of public comment on items that are not on the agenda is limited to 20 minutes total, with up to 3 minutes allotted per speaker. Each person may speak once per meeting concerning items not on the agenda. In-person comments take place. Sign-up is required and follows a first-come, first-served basis. And then the second period of public comment on items not on the agenda will follow immediately after the conclusion of all of our regular business and continue until all comments have been taken. So with that, I have one person that signed up for public comment, and that is Barbara Pulley. Come on up, Barbara. And if you can stand close to that microphone, that would be great. Thank you so much. All right, let me turn that back on for you. Please do.
My name is Barbara Pulley, B-A-R-B-A-R-A, Pulley, P-U-L-L-E-Y. I am a retired accountant with prior experience in governmental fund accounting at U of M from the 1970s. Fund accounting is a reporting of the compliance of each fund for its revenue and expenditures to each fund's purpose. Types of funds back then and still include scholarships, building projects, debt retirement funds, government appropriations, research grants, auxiliary enterprises such as food service and dormitories, and student activities. Now, as a taxpayer in Urban Renewal District 3 since 1967, I object to the tax remittance of $2.5 million from the urban renewal districts being used to help to balance the city's fiscal 2027 budget. It is contrary to the purpose of reducing the debt service of the bonds and or other public improvement projects within each district. Urban Renewal District 3 redevelopment was started in 2000 and is due to expire in 2040. In fiscal year 2025, the total remittance was 5.3 million, of which the urban renewal district's portion was 67%, or 3.52 million. That remittance should have been used to pay down these bonds and its interest instead. I believe that this financial mechanism, as is stated, is illegal and unfair to the taxpayers of each urban renewal district. Any allocation to the schools, county, or city jurisdictions are not within the parameters of the original district's purpose, redevelopment of a distressed district. Just because Mayor Engen started this sleight of hand funds transfer, it should not be continued in this year's budget. It should have been used to pay down the urban renewal district's debt service for the taxpayer in each renewal district, or keep it for immediate future projects. If there are outstanding bonds, the URD must continue with the added tax increment assessment attached to our tax bills. TIF, or tax increment financing, continues usually 20 years after the bonds are issued for each project. Now, MRA's policy appears to have proposed new projects even after the debt is paid off. For example, Hellgate's Urban Renewal District does not have a debt service requirement, but in 2025, it had collected $451,838 of tax increment revenue. It could have been closed by the MRA, but MRA is using this increment revenue for a totally unnecessary Front Street and Main Street two-way conversion. As to how to balance the budget, reconsider staff reductions in these departments who propose these unnecessary and expensive projects. Most grant applications require a matching of funds from the local government applicant, the city, or the MRA.
Thank you, Ms. Pulley, for your comments. All right, we do have some extra time in this allotment if anybody else wishes to make a public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
Good evening, Mrs. Mayor and City Council. My name is John Wolverton. I'm a resident of the near north side. We're familiar often through the housing discussions we've had in the past, but this is a totally different topic. This is my partner's husky dog, Pala. Her name is Pala. For people in the audience who can't quite see this, she's a beautiful elder female white husky with one blue eye. Pala is now a founding member of a new 501(k)(9) called DAF, which is Dogs Against Fireworks. And she's actually the chair of the subcommittee called HAF, which is Huskies Against Fireworks. Now, on a serious note, this recent July 4th was one of the worst weeks that this dog has experienced since I've known her. After the 4th, there was 3 weeks of extreme anxiety on her part where she wouldn't even want to go outside after dusk and walk, and particularly even approaching dusk when we were walking, any orientation toward Ogren Park was really disturbing her. We had her in the house, essentially, with the doors shut, the fans going on the 4th, and she still had a perception of where most of that was coming from. And it was really hard for about 3 weeks for her to be outside at all, especially as darkness approached. She wanted to turn toward home, and huskies are known for being stubborn. She wouldn't turn certain corners that led sort of generally toward the southwest. It was really heartbreaking that she struggled to enjoy the late, cooler evenings when it was really hot out during the day, which those are also hard on her, but that's unavoidable. So I ask you to please keep this story in mind as an example of what many dogs and their people go through. I more specifically ask you to limit Paddlehead's fireworks to July 4th only. I think patriotic displays on the 4th are a good thing, and that's a yes. But five other nights of entertainment fireworks, I believe, are a no. I think please keep that in mind. And I also ask that next year, in early summer, approaching the 4th, you call the police chief and the fire chief into this forum and address their intentions regarding enforcement of illegal private fireworks displays. I hope these discussions are fruitful at producing a robust enforcement plan, which has been done in the past and I think was very successful at keeping things far more calmed down in the summers here around July 4th. and also to spread that information through the civic, neighborhood, and media announcements. I thank you, and Huskies Against Fireworks thanks you.
Thank you, Mr. Wolverton. Appreciate your comments. Anybody else for public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Not seeing anybody in the room. Online, do we have anybody online that wishes to make public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. That looks like it wraps up our public comment on items that are not on our agenda. Thank you very much. All right. Off. So next we are into our public hearings for the evening. We do have several public hearings, and I'll mention here that state law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues. Following a staff report on each item, the city council and the mayor invite community comment. City council holds a public hearing on the item. A member of council makes a motion and a vote is taken. The public hearing and vote is taken on the same night unless there is a reason to hold the vote over to a later meeting date. We do have one of those public hearings this evening. That's the FY27 budget with that very intention. So I'll outline that when we get to that agenda item. But first up, we have item 6.1, which is the right-of-way vacation for the 60-foot right-of-way of Dixon Avenue between Brook Street and Paxson Street. We'll start with a staff report from Mr. Troy Monroe. Mr. Monroe, whenever you're ready.
Hey, this is Aaron. I work under Troy. He is out, but I have a presentation prepared for you guys I can get started on.
Great. All right. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, you bet. 1 second. Okay. Well, good afternoon. My name is Aaron Lebsack. I'm with the Public Works and Mobility Department, and today I will be presenting a right-of-way vacation for Dixon Avenue between Brook Street and Paxson Street. KFC plans to construct a new restaurant on the same property at 3306 Brook Street. Zoning requirements state that parking needs to be located behind the building. By shifting the location of the building footprint, the drive-through was designed to be located in the existing Dixon Avenue right-of-way. Slides here. The right-of-way being petitioned for vacating will fully go to the KFC property. The property to the north, owned by Lamar Advertising, did not express interest in obtaining any of the vacated right-of-way. And for reference, here if you can see my cursor, here is the existing KFC, and then just to the south, McDonald's. And this white area with the red border is the area of right-of-way that we are talking about. Observed traffic during evening peak hours showed the majority of traffic entering and exiting the immediate neighborhood don't utilize this section of Dixon Avenue. 92% of outbound traffic uses Paxson Street versus continuing on Dixon. A high majority of inbound traffic, 73%, also enter the neighborhood using Paxson. On to public benefit. The proposed street vacation is supported because the existing street connection is located in close proximity to a signalized intersection on an urban state highway, creating unnecessary access density and additional conflict points. Vacating the street will consolidate traffic movements at the signalized intersection, improving corridor operations by reducing driver decision-making, minimizing turning conflicts, and enhancing traffic progression. Concentrating access at a single controlled intersection also improves safety by reducing the potential for rear end and angle crashes and creating a more predictable environment for pedestrians and bicyclists through fewer vehicle conflict points and crossing locations. Overall, the proposed vacation is consistent with accepted access management principles and supports the safe and efficient movement of all roadway users. Existing neighborhood traffic will likely utilize the signal at Brooks and Paxson. Traffic from the west will likely utilize McDonald Avenue. Secondly, a new fire hydrant will be constructed in an area that needs additional hydrant coverage. And third, curb and sidewalk will be extended through the vacated right-of-way along Brooks and Paxton Street, creating a safer pedestrian environment. The city has an existing 10-inch steel water main that will need to be covered by a minimum 20-foot municipal utility easement. Public Works and Mobility has also requested a 10-foot right-of-way easement along the east side of the vacated portion of right-of-way along Paxton Street for a future bike lane project. And that's what I have prepared for you guys today. So with that, I would like to adopt a resolution to vacate the 60-foot Dixon Avenue right-of-way between Brook Street and Paxton Street, subject to the conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lebsack, for your presentation. Are there any representatives from the sponsor of the application or the developer here this evening? Any that you're available or aware of, Mr. Lebsack?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and I don't see anybody in the audience either. So with that, that is the staff presentation on this particular item, and we'll move to questions from council. Any questions from council members? Councilor McCoy, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, Aaron, just a couple of quick questions. So we've gotten a little bit of pushback on this vacation of this right away, and I was wondering if you could just maybe expand a little bit more on kind of the future of Brooks and what, you know, the idea that I've been hearing is that we're going to be seeing more and more of this as we develop Brooks, because we're going to try and kind of reduce the number of entrances onto that street and streamline things. Could you touch on that just a little bit broader? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Ryan Guelph, are you available to touch on that one?
Yeah, you bet. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name's Ryan Guelph, City Engineer for Transportation. I'm here on Troy Monroe's behalf while he's out today. But as you know, Councilor McCoy, the Brook Street corridor has undergone some extensive planning, primarily related to the Transform Brooks project with an eye toward bus rapid transit and other improvements. A big aspect of that is access point consolidation. Just the geometry of Brook Street sort of running through the north-south grid creates a lot of redundant access points, many of which don't really provide all that much benefit, but actually do cause some significant safety issues. Access point density on a street like Brooks that carries as much traffic as it does really correlates pretty well with crash risk. So this is a location, Dixon, just given its proximity to Paxton and McDonald and sort of the limited utility it provides, that was identified through study that it would be a good candidate for eventual closure. And this is a good opportunity to do that, given some of the work KFC is proposing. In addition to the safety benefits it provides, it takes street maintenance that we are responsible for as a city off of our liabilities. It reduces the pervious area adjacent to the corridor. So it provides some other benefits related to stormwater runoff as well. Hopefully that helps answer your question. I can elaborate more if you'd like.
No, I think that was great. And hopefully that little bit more expansion helps folks understand why this really does seem like a good choice on the city's part. And then I have one more question for you. One of the other pieces of feedback we've gotten from the public is just about public notice. There's some folks that are living in the area that don't feel like they've been noticed well enough. And I was curious, like, what our requirements are and maybe like what boundaries there are to kind of give us, you know, what announcements we do. So what are the requirements around us publicly noticing folks with this project?
Aaron, do you have any info on that? I do know, I mean, this is kind of part of the process for public notice, right? Providing a an opportunity for folks who hear about the vacation through regular council business to come to speak to their concerns. Other than that, I don't really believe we do any like targeted public notice for a right-of-way vacation like this, especially because the impacts are fairly minor. Just per Aaron's presentation, we did look at traffic patterns, and we're really able to sort of justify objectively the limited utility that Dixon provides. But Aaron, feel free to elaborate if you have more info on the public noticing.
No, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Appreciate you guys chiming in on that.
Thank you, Councillor McCoy. I was also going to invite City Attorney Sudbury. He is online, not in the room. If there's any additional information in regards to the requirements for public notice on right-of-way vacation. But I see his microphone has unmuted. And Mr. Sudbury, if there's any additional detail you'd like to provide?
Yeah, no, I think staff has outlined it well. There's no specific requirements for public notice for a vacation. There's no requirements to send out notice to a certain radius around the property or anything like that. So no public noticing that is required is simply the notice of the city council meeting at a standard meeting. Any additional outreach is optional, and to the extent that city council is interested in adopting a standard for something like that, we could certainly do that. But otherwise, it's just sort of up to the public works staff as to how much notice they feel like is necessary in a given situation.
Thank you for the additional context. Appreciate your questions. Thank you. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you. Yeah, this came up before, and I think, Ryan, just to make sure I understand, we could, as a council body, set forth some sort of expectation and requirement rules to notify a certain amount of people within these public rights of way. Are there any limitations to what we could add to that? Because I think in this particular instance, not a lot of people live within 150 feet of it, which I think is kind of the typical development circumference, or whatever the word is for that.
Yeah, I mean, city council's free to adopt additional sort of optional regulations of that sort regarding public notice. If you remember, Title 20 was, and Title 19 before it was replete with various requirements. And what ended up happening is it actually became very difficult to track and administer, because there were, every other subsection had a public noticing requirement, for ADUs or for variances and different things. And it became difficult because you'd have to make sure and double and triple check each time you did it, and each time you did each type of action that you were doing the correct notice. And failure to, if it says you have to send it to everybody within 200 feet and you apply 150-foot buffer because that's the buffer or the requirement that applies in a similar situation, but not this one, and you don't do it, then that could lead to, whatever the project is being stopped for failure to follow your own standards. So layering on those procedural requirements, while, it can achieve, important sort of public policy purposes, does come with an increase in procedural requirements that, if we don't follow, can get us in hot water and have us stall projects or make us do it all over again. So that's not to say not to do it. It's just when we adopt those things, it's important to remember that there are trade-offs, and it takes more staff time, it takes more cost, and I think we've been trying to simplify some of those and rely on the city council agenda and the webpage to get information out. But yes, to answer your question, that it is definitely something that's within city council's authority to do.
Excellent. That was a very thorough response, and I appreciate that. I think it might be worth looking at just as we try and figure out how many different ways we can reach constituents. Everybody kind of hears things a different way, and I also understand, though, that the regulatory burden could be too much as well. So I think I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Any additional questions from council members? Okay, not seeing any additional questions or hands raised. So that wraps up our questions from council, and we'll go ahead and hear the main motion on this. President Nugent, is this a land use or is this public works? This is sort of a go-between. It's in between these two, isn't it?
I actually can't remember where it was at committee. Does somebody remember?
It's public work.
Go for it, Mirta.
All right. Councilor
I move
Becerra.
that we adopt a resolution to vacate the 60-foot Dixon Avenue right-of-way between Brook Street and Paxton Street, subject to the conditions of approval.
All right, excellent. The motion's on the floor. Thank you, Chair Becerra. Motion's on the floor. This opens the public hearing and opportunity for public comment on this agenda item. So any public comment on this agenda item, we invite you to come on up now. We'll start with folks that are in the room. Any public comment on this agenda item? It's on. It's on, but it doesn't sound like it. Does it one more time? Let me turn it off and on again. Let's try it one more time.
Hello.
Thank
We
you.
got it. All right. Carrie Schreiber, Southgate Triangle leadership team, and also I live about 2 blocks away from this project, and I really appreciate all the questions that were brought forth. Couple of easy ideas for notification. I would think contacting the neighborhood councils where the vacations are going to happen would help us do our role of educating our neighborhood. And, we might have valuable feedback because we live in those specific areas. I know that you did a little bit of a study there, and it was really nice to hear about that. I don't know if there's been a sandwich board sign up there announcing what's happening and what the dates are. That would be another easy way to notify folks. The business owner on the north side of that intersection has been very concerned about the traffic flow and patterns, and he wrote like a 5-page letter and shared that with a number of people involved in the development on the north side of this, and hasn't heard back from public works or counselors or whatnot. And he's had his business for over 50 years. He's familiar with the patterns of near misses and accidents, and just that this whole area is very much tied in with the Midtown Commons. So it's a sensitive infill area. Maybe it doesn't specifically trigger a traffic study, but that doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do a traffic study when we have a dangerous intersection that we're hopefully making safer by this. My mind does go to safe pedestrian crossing for the public. Currently, folks could go up to Paxson at the Fox Club, but they have to take a very long diagonal walk across Brook Street. And it's, if we can ever get some perpendicular crossings on Brooks, that would limit the amount of time that people are on that big road. When Brooks was made into this thoroughfare, it had been a solid neighborhood. And for however many decades that is, we've been promised that it's going to be knit back together by all these processes, and just having a safe place to cross. I'm also curious about the compensation. So I understand that the one property owner didn't want any of the easements, so it just all goes to the KFC owner. And is that going to be the standard all the way up and down Brook Street? Is it just to give these sections of land to the adjacent business owners in order to close that off? Is there any kickback for the public? And again, the most local kickback we could get would be a safe crosswalk through there. Anyway, yeah, thank you for all your questions, and sure like to see this all be a comprehensive planning effort rather than begging for a traffic study here. And
Thank you, Ms. Schreiber. Thanks for your comments. Any additional public comment on this agenda item? Okay, not seeing any in the room. I'll just quickly go online here to see if we have any members of the public that wish to make comment on this agenda item. Public comment on item 6.1. Okay. I don't see any additional public comment, so that wraps up the public hearing, and we'll bring it back to council for council deliberations. Are there any additional questions from council members or any comments that council members would like to make before we take a vote? Councillor Nugent.
Quick question. The, and I know I asked this in committee, and you may have already touched on it, but Mr. Monroe told us, and Ms. Jones, I think you were on this email thread too, that the value the city saw in this was achieving getting less of the streets coming onto Brooks, kind of these one-offs. Could somebody from staff just speak to that a little bit on kind of how that decision was made on what the value trade-off for the public is?
Yeah, I could weigh in on that. Yeah, that's certainly a big part of the discussion right up front is what benefit does the public get from releasing right away to a private entity. And in this case, it's really the safety benefit, reducing access points on Brooks. Again, we studied this segment and it doesn't really provide much utility. So there's, reducing that crash risk that it certainly poses is a benefit that we saw. Additionally, it's just a side street that doesn't get used much, and we're liable for maintenance of it. So we take that asset off of our inventory, and it's no longer something we have to maintain for the limited benefit it provides. So I think Aaron had a couple other benefits in his slide, really pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. It's one less crossing point for someone on foot or bike walking down Brooks to contend with turning traffic. Traffic speeds can be pretty high making a turn at that intersection, so just given the geometry. So that's a benefit as well.
Then a quick follow-up.
Please.
I know that I have been in meetings where the length of Brook Street has been kind of studied and outlined, and sometimes I forget which plans are which. And it may have been the kind of future wants and goals of having the rapid transit, the bus rapid transit on Brook Street. But I know I've seen a plan somewhere where they identified several of these kind of entrance exit streets off of Brooks as potentially being removed to make it safer for pedestrians and make traffic flow better. Can you think off the top of your head what plan or plans that might be referenced in?
Yeah, that is the Transform Brooks plan. If you just Google that'll take you right to the planning page we have on Engage Missoula that studied Brook Street comprehensively and has the recommendations for side street closures.
So staff is making these recommendations based off of a plan and a study that's already occurred.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
This
Perfect.
recommendation's informed by that plan for sure.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your questions. Councillor Jones.
I actually have a comment.
Absolutely, yes it is, you bet.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of build off of what Mike was discussing, because with all of these right-of-way vacations, we all are always looking for the potential for community benefit for the public. And what I've learned over the years is every one of these right-of-way vacations is very unique. They're usually very unique, quirky little scenarios. Something doesn't really work, it's not being utilized, there can be a better use for it, so that's why we do it. And different times, different public benefits that we can get out of them. So first of all, they're just very unique. And then secondly, I think this is a great example of, we have all of this grid that was laid down decades and decades and decades ago, and then a straight shot through it with Brooks Avenue. And so you have these unusual little nodes, I think is what they call them in transportation planning, and Merta, correct me if I'm wrong, but just unusual connections to that main corridor that are not useful and don't create good traffic flow and are dangerous. So having had the Transform Brooks study and then the Midtown Master Plan, a lot of this was discussed extensively in those. And then that's the value of having all of that long-term planning done and investing the money in getting thoughtful experts who really look at this situation, bring a lot of tools to it, and help us analyze what we have and what's going to be the best way forward. So then when we have something like this come up, we have some direction in those master plans, which is very, very valuable because it helps us make decisions and move forward. So as Mike was pointing out, we have these master plans. That's exactly what's happened in this situation. I think it's very valuable to be able to just look at those master plans, plug this in, and we have good guidance. We certainly still analyze it, debate it, think it through, but it's an excellent tool. So anyway, long story short, I'm happy to support this today, but I just wanted to point out the value of the process in getting to here.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any other council comments? All right. Not seeing any then, I believe we can go ahead and take a roll call vote, please, Ms. Trimble.
All right, voting on this evening's first public agenda item to adopt an intention to vacate the 60-foot wide Dixon Avenue right-of-way, beginning with Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Krask,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
McCoy,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Ponton,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
and Cheryl.
Yes.
And that's unanimous.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks for your good questions, council members, and to the staff for your presentation. Just a little side note that this question often comes up. What is the deal with Missoula's slant streets? Montana Public Radio has a great segment called The Big Why. They did a segment on Missoula's slant streets, so I recommend you take a listen to that. It's pretty interesting Missoula history. So, all right. With that, we'll move on to our next public hearing, item 6.2. This is a right-of-way vacation for a portion of the cul-de-sac lying southwest of the extension of the southwesterly tangent of Expo Parkway. So my goodness, sounds like we are getting a pretty small piece of property here based on the description, but we're about to hear. Now, Mr. Monroe is obviously not here this evening, so we do have staff here to present, and I'm assuming that might be Mr. Lebsack again. Is that right, or is that Mr. Gulf?
It will actually be Mr. Sexton, Vaughn Sexton. I work under Troy Monroe as well.
Well, excellent. Glad to have you, Mr. Sexton. Thank you, and we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, that's a mouthful, ain't it? All right. So thank you, Council. Good evening. My name is Vaughn Sexton. I'm an engineering plans examiner and inspector, and I will be presenting a right-of-way vacation request in Expo Parkway from K3 Missoula LLC. So K3 LLC is constructing a 180-room hotel on the present lot 5B1 of Commerce Center Phase 2. The property is encumbered by unused cul-de-sac right-of-way. So this sort of speaks to Councilwoman Jones's point earlier about every little right-of-way vacation being a weird little quirky one, and this one's definitely a weird little quirky one. The Commerce Center subdivision was originally filed in June of '96, which dedicated a 60-foot wide public right-of-way for Expo Parkway, terminating in a cul-de-sac. When the roadway and cul-de-sac were ultimately constructed, however, it was constructed 130 feet to the west. As you can see highlighted here, a right-of-way easement exists where the cul-de-sac is currently constructed, so there is no additional work beyond this vacation needed to remedy the right-of-way mistake. This vacation would clean up the right-of-way to better align with the recorded public right-of-way within the roadway as constructed. The development proposes construction of an access driveway across the portion of the original cul-de-sac right-of-way that's not being used, seen here in the attached site plan. Correcting this correcting the plat aligns the recorded public right-of-way with the roadway as constructed, improving the accuracy of public records, reducing future conflicts,
and providing clear legal documentation for the city's transportation and utility infrastructure. After a design review team meeting and a 2-week agency review period, no conditions were suggested, and no utilities currently exist in the proposed vacation. I recommend that we adopt a resolution to vacate this portion of the cul-de-sac located in the Commerce Center subdivision Phase 2.
Thank you for your staff presentation, Mr. Sexton. Is there anybody that is a member of the sponsor or the applicant that wishes to make comment before we hear questions from council? Not seeing any. All right, then we'll move the item to council members here to see if we have any questions. Councilor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify, and when we scheduled this public hearing, we discussed this as well. And the map you just had up would be great if you left that on the screen. It appears that we're just cleaning up the right-of-way where originally it was thought to be, but then it got pushed further down. So ultimately with this project, the city ended up with the same cul-de-sac right-of-way, just a few feet further down the road. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Originally, the cul-de-sac was supposed to be built where the right-of-way currently exists. It got moved 130 feet to the west when they created 2 more lots, like further up to the west as part of that subdivision Phase 2. But somewhere along the process, the right-of-way never got moved. And so the right-of-way easement was created, and then the right-of-way as it existed before just never got cleaned up. So essentially this is just a cleanup of an old right-of-way mistake from the 90s.
All right, and we have the right-of-way for the cul-de-sac as it exists today.
Yes, sir. That's on this previous slide here.
Yep.
We have a right-of-way easement here, and the book and page is right there as well. So it is a recorded right-of-way easement where the cul-de-sac currently exists.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that got restated for the public.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you both. Any other questions from council? All right, not seeing any. Then we'll go ahead and hear the main motion from our Public Works Chair, Councilor Becerra, please.
All right. I move that we adopt a resolution of intent to vacate. Actually, this is not the intent. It's resolution to vacate a portion of the cul-de-sac lying southwest of the extension of the southwesterly tangent of Expo Parkway, located in the plat of Commerce Center in the northwest 1/4 of Section 5, Township 13, Range 19 West, Principal Meridian, Montana, City of Missoula, Missoula County, Montana.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Motion is on the floor. This opens the public hearing, and we invite members of the public to comment on this agenda item. Any members of the public wishing to comment on this agenda item?
Carrie Schreiber, Southgate Triangle. I'm curious, does the vacated easements then become tax revenue for the city? Because that seems like that would be kind of a benefit. And I'm wondering what the square footage is on this one. Because the last one, when I multiply 60 by 20 by $15 a square foot, which is what we bought the property north of there for, the value of that land would be $108,000. So I'm kind of wondering what the square footage of this other one we're talking about, and if this land then goes on to create tax revenue for the city.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Ms. Schreiber, any additional public comment on this agenda item? Not any in the room. How about online? All right. No additional public comments online. Councilor Jordan.
Sorry, but Ms. Schreiber just piqued my curiosity. Is there any way we can get a response to those questions?
You bet.
Thank you.
You bet. So, yes, City Attorney Sudbury.
Yeah, I can answer one, and I can provide some, I guess, comment on the other one. These are rights of way, so they're effectively easements. the landowner actually, by state law, is presumed to own to the middle of the right of way. So when we vacate the right of way, we're just vacating that easement. So it's returned to sort of full private ownership, and it should become part of the tax rolls. Although again, the city doesn't have any control over that, as city council members are aware. We've had this discussion a number of times. That is all determined by the Department of Revenue, but I would anticipate within a year or so of the vacation going through and that information being passed on to the Department of Revenue, that it would be returned to the tax rolls. For the valuation question, again, it gets back to the issue of value. So there is certainly some value in the appraisal industry for fair market value for easements like streets, but it's not the same as a fee simple piece of property. These can't be treated as fee simple parcels. They can't be used to build structures on, or have, if the city had a right of way parcel to build a housing development on, or something like that. They are easements for street and public access purposes, which includes rights incidental to that are traditionally associated with those types of easements, which include subsurface utility easements. But beyond that, the city doesn't have the right to use those, and as a result, the value associated with those is substantially lower than a fee simple piece of property that you had full development rights on. But appraisers, you can hire an appraiser to do a valuation on an easement like this. That's been done in other areas where there was the city didn't really have an interest in getting rid of the easement. And that we needed some sort of inducement, and we've done that where people made contributions to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as an inducement to get the city to vacate it. But in situations like this where there's no real public need or use for it, we haven't gone down that road in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sudbury. And Councillor Becerra.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add a brief comment on the value of a lot of our right-of-way vacations, and that is in part why it's difficult to have a single policy that applies to every potential right-of-way vacation, because every situation is unique, and the value of that potential transaction, I think it's also, it differs by where the actual right-of-way is located. But I know that staff has to go through a process for evaluating that potential value for public benefit before it's granted or brought to City Council for approval of that right-of-way vacation. So, for example, in the past, we have been able to retain some of that value in the form of additional housing units or access to a trail, additional street infrastructure. And we also see the value of a right-of-way vacation when it comes to public safety and access to some of our corridors. So it's part of the process to look at what the potential public benefits of a public right-of-way vacation could be, and integrate that into any possible project if we have the ability to do so.
Thanks for that additional context, Councillor Becerra. Mr. Sexton.
Yeah, just to speak to that process, we have a design review team meeting that's part of the process for these right-of-way vacations, where we bring it to like the planning department and public works and everything, and that's where those additional like benefits or increments that Mr. Sudbury talked about are discussed or implemented. And secondly, I believe the comment in the room, they were asking about the area of right-of-way that we are going to be vacating or possibly vacating. And I just wanted to answer that question. It's 2,214 square feet approximately. That's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Sexton. Appreciate that additional context and information. Any other council comments? No. All right. Looks like we've wrapped up then our council deliberation. We can move to a roll call vote. Ms. Trimble.
All right, voting on our second public hearing of this evening, a motion to adopt a resolution to vacate a portion of the cul-de-sac described on Expo Parkway, beginning with Becerra.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Krask.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
McCoy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, waiting for my computer to catch up. No worries. Melson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Monton.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
And Anderson.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks, Mr. Sexton, for the staff presentation, as well as Mr. Sudbury. Thank you for the information. All right. That wraps up that agenda item. So next we'll move on to 6.3 through the remainder of the public hearings. Everything from here on out is relative to the city's budget FY 2027. So I'll go ahead and start out this item by saying that tonight we're opening the public hearing for fiscal year 27, and we will hold open the item until the scheduled adoption, which is August 17th, so that's next Monday. There will be council deliberations this coming Wednesday on August 12th. This is all per the adopted city council schedule that has been publicly noticed and adopted here at council. We'll start off with a staff presentation, which includes some remarks from myself, an update on a few minor things that have changed since I presented the executive budget on Wednesday, August 5th, and that includes receiving the Department of Revenue numbers. And then we'll hear from Finance Director Lee Griffin. We'll move to questions from council. We'll take public comment this evening, and then after which we'll refer FY27 budget back to the Budget and Finance Committee on Wednesday, August 12th. And again, it's all agreed upon by a previously adopted council schedule. I will mention that I'll ask Councillor Savage at that time to put the motions on the floor before we send that back to committee. Thank you. So as I mentioned, I first presented my executive budget to you, City Council, on August 5th. And I encourage everyone to watch the full recording of that presentation and discussion, as well as visit the City of Missoula budget webpage for full information. And as we go through this process, more information is uploaded as it becomes available. So for example, when council members presented their amendments, those amendments have been publicly noticed on the City of Missoula FY27 webpage, as well as the committee schedule for this upcoming Wednesday. So all those amendments are publicly noticed online. So I'll just highlight, again, some high notes here from the executive budget. Affordability and fiscal sustainability are top priorities for me, as well as our constituents. And as we have talked about over many years, this budget continues to be very tight because of capped revenues. We have absorbed severe cost escalations, and we have increased demand for our services. This budget includes modest changes to programs and services and some cost savings. Some examples on some of those cost savings that I wanted to highlight for you this evening. In our Community Planning, Development, and Innovation Department, they've implemented position-related savings totaling $354,000. So those are cost savings that we are looking to put permanently into the budget. So FY27 sees those permanent budget savings. And those savings come from leaving 3 positions basically unfilled through attrition. So it's a senior planner, a building code compliance officer, and a building inspector. Some of the other savings that we are recommending for FY27 is the Missoula Fire Department has reduced its overtime budget by $140,000. And then in central services, we did some work to save approximately $176,000 in our information technology managed softwares, services, hardware, software licensing, that kind of a thing. But another really big savings that we are including here in the FY27 budget is we're delaying certain fleet purchases. So as you can imagine, the city purchases several vehicles for a host of different things. And we're delaying certain fleet purchases, which results in about $387,000 in savings for fiscal year 27. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things for you. We didn't go through that on Wednesday, the 5th. So in addition to those cost savings, there are no new programs being presented in this budget, and we have worked hard to minimize our effect on property taxes and fees while balancing the service needs that our constituents have come to need, want, and expect. Fortunately, we can continue significant progress on housing initiatives and infrastructure investment. And some of those that I want to highlight are our Midtown Commons project, the Franklin Crossing project. We are funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund with land sales from the Riverfront Triangle sale. We are implementing the Unified Development Code. On the John Engen Federal Building, which is co-owned with Missoula County, we are conducting lead-based paint and asbestos abatement. We are implementing a new financial management system. We will conduct facility improvements at our Public Works and Mobility building on West Broadway. And we will move forward with site acquisition for Missoula Fire Department Station number 6. We're going to complete the multimodal greenway in the Ivy and Franklin Street area, as well as sidewalk and stormwater improvements along Eaton Street. And then we will add a utility engineer FTE for additional water and sewer main replacements. And then lastly, I just want to highlight that we will begin construction of a new park on North Scott Street. So I'm really pleased that we can continue progress and on these housing initiatives and infrastructure investment, but we do have headwinds. We have that persistent issue of ongoing expenses exceeding our ongoing revenues. High inflation continues to erode our purchasing powers despite having made really significant progress in meeting demands of the day with fair compensation for employees and notably for our public safety and law enforcement. This is an important priority for me, as the people of the city of Missoula are our biggest asset. They are the reason that we are able to accomplish all of that work that I just highlighted, in addition to all of the work that we just talked about tonight in terms of our public hearings that we just discussed. Fiscal year 27 does have a reliance on a one-time source of revenue to balance the budget. That is a remittance from the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, which totals $2.5 million to the city. Despite MRA sharing tax growth with partner local governments, there will be no impact to known housing and infrastructure projects. And importantly, these investments that we've made and that have been realized through the MRA provide the city a tool to both strengthen the urban renewal districts through economic opportunities and improved infrastructure, but also to maintain a high level of service across our city. The needs remain to build the general fund cash reserves. This budget does anticipate adding approximately $750,000 to the bottom line to our general fund cash reserves, and then going forward, we will remain committed to building our reserves. Fees. Fees play a small but important role in our revenues. In the general fund, fees represent about 9.3% of our total revenues. And we strive to have a good balance of fees versus subsidy to make sure that the fees support the appropriate level of underlying service that is received. We'll look at those in a minute here when we take a look at the slideshow. But for FY27, the revenue from fees is projected to be $834,151. So the values of financial stability, responsible investment, and responsive public service are at the core of our decision-making, and these values are reflected in the prioritization of this budget, with a continued commitment to stability and predictability. We are able to accomplish this budget with a 3.8 property tax increase, and I'm committed to keeping these increases modest and predictable. This budget maintains the service level that our residents expect with a reasonable increase. And next, I'd like to move to our slideshow, which does highlight the expenditures, some of our cost estimates, but starting with the next slide, which shows major changes since the mayor's introduction. So since my introduction on the 5th. As I mentioned, we did get our certified taxable values from the Montana Department of Revenue. So I want to stop here to note that in 2025, the Montana legislature passed property tax reform that changed the way we are all taxed if we are property owners. And if you're a renter, you pay property taxes through your rent as well. Residential, the types of residential, commercial, industrial, centrally assessed, which are like utilities, Northwest Energy, agriculture. Those changes came through in 2 different tranches. The first set were experienced last year, and then the next set of changes, legislative changes, are now imposed for this fiscal year. So what that did to municipal financing and to municipal, to our budget, is it reduced the number of mills necessary to achieve our budget, and it lowered the tax impact on a median owner-occupied home. Okay, this was intentional legislation passed by the legislature. This also did result in slight reductions in our fund balance. So you can see those here. Our general fund balance decreased by $7,152, the Park District by $4,278, the voted fire levy by $3,208, and then the voted open space levy by $1,415. Our building fund projections changed from August 5th until now, and that is an increase of $24,000 in additional revenue. That is based on our current building trends and data. So we believe we'll actually have more in building fee revenue just based on trends. And then the fees that are associated with our budget will go into effect on October 1st. Okay, so let's review total expenditures and revenues. Our expenditures that are in our general fund, our road, our park districts, and our fire levy. I'd like to invite people to think about those as 4 separate buckets. They all have their own rules. They are not fungible between one another. So I think it's important for folks to realize that we don't get to move money from one to the other. The general fund, while I just spoke about the 2025 legislature changing the tax law, up until then, our general fund was capped at a 3-year rolling average of 1/2 of inflation. So no matter what inflation was, when it was 8%, for that year, the max we could charge was 4%. So as you can imagine, there's always an exercise that has to be done at local government around how are we going to pay for the cost of services. Now, some of what's changed in the 25 legislature is that we are now able to get the full cost of inflation up to 4%. So I want you to keep that in mind. Again, rolling 3-year average up to 4%, and then 75% of new development, new growth that comes into the city, new projects that are built, we're able to receive 75% of the value, not 100%. Okay, so there's always these moving pieces around. When I talk about expenditures in the general fund is capped. It's capped at what I just talked about. And then the road and the park districts and fire levy are capped to what we believe can be reasonably passed as fire levy not, but road and park districts, what can be reasonably asked of our taxpayers to take on for additional property taxes. And then, and you're seeing the expenditures of these different tax funds on the screen now. So these are what appear on your tax bill as the city's part of your property taxes. On your property taxes, you have Missoula County schools, state schools, you have local schools, state schools, you have Mountain Line, and you have the city of Missoula. So you have multiple taxing jurisdictions on your property tax bill. But your local property tax bill for the city of Missoula, this is where the total of $131 million will go in expenditures. And again, all this information is available on the city of Missoula's website, our budget page. Next slide, please. So we do bring in revenue that is not tax funds. Some of those examples are revenues like utilities, right? People pay a water bill, a wastewater, stormwater. Those are all revenues that are not taxes. Those are user fees, and as well as parking, for example. So this includes all expenditures for the city's operations, which includes our tax funds as well as our non-tax funds. Total expenditures are $198,173,494. And you can see all the different departments and where those expenditures go. Next slide, please. So next I want to talk about fee changes. I mentioned that a little under 10% of our general fund is comprised of fees. Next slide, please. So we wanted to be able to demonstrate what that means for a typical home in Missoula. So permits for the review and inspection of new development and construction. A typical home is estimated to be approximately $500,000 in value and approximately 2,000 square feet, okay? So in FY26, our building and planning fees were $6,787, and this proposed budget, those building and planning fees are $7,937. So the note at the bottom there, in the general fund, this increases the cost recovery from 23% to 29% of the cost of service. I mentioned earlier, we are constantly balancing what we charge the user, and in this case, it's the developer that's building the home and the homeowner that is paying for that home, with what is paid for through property taxes, and balancing out how much we pay for through user fees and are applied to the permit and planning, and how much is paid for through property taxes. Next slide, please. So impact fees. Impact fees are fees charged to new homes and developments, so they pay their fair share of the public infrastructure needed to support them. Impact fees, according to state law, pay for growth, future growth. So on a typical home, our impact fees will go up, just a little over about $700. So from $3,248 to $3,973. Next slide. And then there is the cost of connecting to our utilities. So our utility development fees, these are fees that are charged to new homes and developments. So they pay their fair share of the public infrastructure needed to support those. Again, drinking water, public water, stormwater, and wastewater. On a typical home, you'll see that this is going up, just shy of $300. So $5,171 in fiscal year 26 and $5,430 proposed for fiscal year 27. Next slide, please. So our taxes and assessments. I mentioned earlier that we anticipate a total average of 3.8% increase in city property tax funds. That 3.8% is an average because of what I talked about with the 2025 legislative changes. Not every person's home is taxed at the same rate. It depends on what your home is valued. So the legislature was incentivizing median priced homes in terms of property tax relief. If you own a second home, and if you have a short-term rental, you will likely see property tax increases this year. That is due to the state of Montana Department of Revenue evaluation and appraisal of those properties. It is not due to the city budget. Those are the 2025 legislative changes that were put into place. So this 3.8% increase in city property tax funds on average includes the fire levy, it includes our general fund, it includes our road and our park districts. We did put a note here, just making sure how we were sizing up with what's projected to be inflation for the full year of 2026. And you can see that the S&P Global is projected average and inflation is 3.8%. And then just June's inflation data from the Consumer Price Index is 3.5%. Next slide, please. So where does that go? The distribution of the 3.8%, or what's equivalent to $2,825,073. 82.5 goes to existing wages. 10.9% goes to baseline and contractual. We have software licensing fees. We have to pay Northwest Energy. Those are those kind of contracts that the city has as well. And then other new requests, some of the new requests I highlighted last time. Municipal court needs, they need new AV equipment. They need new audio video equipment for their courtrooms. That's in new requests, for example. Interpretation services are also something that they need for effective delivery of justice in the court. That's another example of a new request. All right. Next slide, please. So we shared this with you last time, and this is interesting because this changed from August 5th. So we're showing you property tax assessed value. Assessed value is different than market rate value, right? This is property taxes. Department of Revenue assesses your property for value. That is what your tax number is derived from. We wanted to show a pretty wide range in the middle of what median home prices are. So we show $400,000 up to $700,000 values. Again, assessed values. And our estimated city property tax for a $500,000 home is $1,447. For a $507,000 owner-occupied or long-term rental home, again, that's following the 2025 legislative changes, city taxes will decrease about $72 this year. So last Wednesday, our team estimated that our taxes, the 3.8% increase would be on average a $72 increase on a median priced home. That in fact swung the other direction after getting the Department of Revenue figures. So that's actually a $144,000 difference. So I thought there would be a $72 increase on a $500,000 home. It's actually a decrease based on Department of Revenue taxable assessed figures. That's because the tax rate changed. So I'm not going to pretend to go through all that because we are going to go through a very thorough presentation on Wednesday around all that. There'll be an opportunity to really dig into this, but it's because the tax rate changed for a median priced home. Yeah, pretty wild. So that's a notable change from prior to having the Department of Revenue figures. Next slide, please. So here it is again, estimated city taxes. You can see that in 2025, that primary home, your primary home, that is a median assessed value, the city taxes would have been $1,500, $1,541, and now those are about $72 lower for 2026 because of the legislative changes and the tax rate changing for a median primary home, median assessed primary home. And there you can just see that down below here that the percent decrease estimated city taxes is close to 5% decrease for FY26. Next slide, please. So then just lastly to wrap up here before I turn it over to Finance Director Lee Griffin, we do have council budget deliberations in the Budget and Finance Committee starting at 12:15 this coming Wednesday, August 12th. Those are currently scheduled to last all day. Please come down and take part. And then the expected budget adoption is Monday, August 17th. I do want to mention that public comment will be invited throughout that process, so both August 12th and 17th. And so I'd like to turn over the rest of the presentation, staff presentation, to Finance Director Lee Griffin, if I could, please.
Thank you. I actually have two presentations to go over this evening. And the first one is what we call the budget guide. This will also be attached to our agenda and posted on our website. So this is a guide to how to read the budget documents. What are the documents that are in the budget? What are we putting out there on the website? And my machine is not responding. Okay, where to start? You can navigate to the preliminary budget webpage from the front page of the city's website. You would go to the Engage page. There's a little square there that discusses the budget planning process. And then from there, you can navigate to the Finance preliminary budget website. On the Finance website, there are three main categories of documents that make up the budget. The first category are summary documents. The next category are council amendments, and then we have department budgets, and we'll go into those in a little more detail. The documents that make up the entire budget are line item budgets. These are your department budgets. Baseline changes, you want to see what adjustments were made from last year to maintain existing services. New requests that are funded, and the community investment program. So for those summary documents, we have a budget analysis. These are those 4 tax and assessment supported funds that the mayor was just discussing that folks see on their property bills. Baseline changes, again, what changed to maintain existing services. Budgeted revenues, this is a listing of all of our expected revenue sources by fund. A CIP summary. This is our community investment program. This is a 5-year planning tool, so it is somewhat of a large document, but you can really see all of the major capital projects that the city is entering into and what their funding sources are. And then we have something called City Budget All Funds, and this is a list of every single 100+ funds that the city maintains a budget for, and that adds up into the budget resolution that's passed by council. Our next section of documents are those council amendments. The city charter, the mayor presents an executive budget. Then council has the opportunity to propose amendments. They will be reviewed at the Budget and Finance Committee and ultimately voted on with the budget. Then if folks are interested in details, we have department budgets and program inventories. So you can navigate to a department budget. You will see the department presentations, their new requests. You will also see a line item budget. And these are things along the lines of what are the wages, the supplies, the professional services within a department's budget. But there's more than that to just a department's budget. The departments also segregate their budgets into what are called activities. And so these are sort of the program groupings that a department will undertake. And if you navigate to that and click on the blue hyperlink, as shown over here on the right in the presentation, it will take you to a document that will have a more narrative description of what the department is undertaking there. So those are all of the documents. And I just wanted to point out again that if folks have questions or feedback, it's good to navigate to the Engage Missoula page for comments and the FY27 budget page for documents. And if you're ready, I can jump into the next one.
Sounds great. All right.
I wanted to do a brief discussion of all of those budget resolutions that are on tonight's agenda and will be voted on in our next city council meeting. As stated by the mayor, the public hearing opens tonight, but council is not taking action tonight. So items 6.3 through 6.8 on tonight's agenda list documents that are resolutions and activities that City Council will vote on and ultimately pass. Our first one is the appropriations resolution, and this establishes the legal spending authority for FY27. This says to departments, this is how much money you are authorized to spend in the year. And it shows the capital budget as well. That $402 million amount that is in there right now is not that spending limit. This is to conform with state law, which requires that this particular resolution show all budgeted sources and uses. So for example, it's going to add in beginning fund balance of a particular fund and estimated ending fund balance. But it will designate specifically what the expenditures are allowed to be. 6.4 has district assessments and work plans, and there are 4 different resolutions here: the Park District and Road District, Tourism Business Improvement District, and the Downtown Improvement District. 6.5 will have a list of those fee resolutions. All but the Parks and Rec increases will happen on October 1st, go into effect. 6, 6, and 7 are other special assessments. These are targeted assessments for defined services. They are not citywide like the Park and Road District. We have a street maintenance district, which funds downtown sweeping, trash, recycling removal, and then some smaller special lighting districts. 6.8 is the property tax levy. This has to be separate from the appropriations. How much can we spend levy? And it will outline the number of mills for each one of these 4 categories that we get to levy. So what happens next? Tonight we open the public hearing. On the 12th, there will be continued presentations and council deliberation with estimated final vote by City Council on August 17th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Griffing. So this public hearing will be held open, as I mentioned, but I do want to make sure we have an opportunity to ask if council members have questions, and we do want to make sure that we have the opportunity to take public comment this evening as well. But before we take public comment, do we have any questions from council? Councilor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And just verifying for your updated presentation tonight and the other information, that'll be added to the FY27 webpage.
That is correct. You bet. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Any other council questions? Yes, Councilor Jordan, please.
I'm sorry, I've been booted off. I just wanted to say I had a bunch of questions, but I've sent them in to staff for answers. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll get those answers rounded up for Wednesday. You bet. Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a general question kind of from our public comment earlier, and I just wanted to try and address the legality of using MRA funds. I was curious if we could maybe rehash that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for your question. We're just talking about this. In fact, there's explicit language within the legislature that says that remittance is legal. So it is perfectly legal within state statute. And CAO Dale Bickle, would you like to expand on that?
There's a provision in law in tax and grant financing for remittance of unused and uncommitted funds, and it really doesn't specify any more details than it's what I just said, and that it has to be distributed proportionally to the underlying taxing jurisdictions. Each taxing jurisdiction has a different method on how they have to address the receipt of those funds. Like, for example, Missoula County can use it to fund budget operations and things that similar to what the city of Missoula does. But a school district, for example, has to treat that as a certain type of tax revenue, and they don't get additional revenues. They actually have to adjust their levies. So it just kind of depends on the jurisdiction.
Thank you for your question. Appreciate that. Thanks for helping clarify. Any additional council questions? All right, not seeing any. Do we have any public comment on the budget this evening, on the draft budget? Any public comment this evening? Okay, not seeing any. Okay, come on up.
Mayor, Council, my name is Clancy Kanka, born and raised in Missoula, Montana. I reside over at 1805 34th Street. And just a general comment, I see that you went through some efforts to cut expenses in the budget to keep it below the 4% cap. My concern is when you start your budget, it seems like you should look at what the cost of living increase that retired people get in my age category, the baby boomers, and it's like 2.8%. So what happens when the city raises it 3.8, that person that's on a fixed income that the government determines what that increase is going to be to live, they have to cut out something. And I think when the government body that serves the people does not take that as the first consideration of what a budget should be, the top end of the budget, you're not fulfilling your duty. And I think it's probably way too late in the process to do anything, but I'd like to see some resolution coming from the city council that they respect us baby boomers and the people they call the most vulnerable. But I would like to see more action in that area, that you come out and say, if the government says that your cost of living is 2.8%, we acknowledge that our job is to serve you, and we're going to start the budget process at 2.8 or less. And some services may have to be given up, and maybe some people can't get what they want. But I think when you see the homelessness here in Missoula, and I'm a landlord, and I have people who've been with me 10, 12, 15 years, and they're on a fixed budget, and I go to them and say, hey, city water, sewer, and wastewater is going up 9%. And they say, but Clancy, we're only getting a 2.8% increase. Sorry, that's your government. Or it's a 3.8. Now, fortunately, I'm in a situation where most of my properties are paid for and I can rent under market. But I can tell you there's people that get hurt. Mr. Nugent knows about that stuff because he's in the real estate business. There's people getting hurt out there because the city overspends. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, Mr. Genka. All right. Any additional public comment on this agenda item? Not seeing any in the room. I do see a hand raised online. Ms. Newman, please go ahead and unmute yourself. We're ready for you.
Hi, my name is Kristen Newman, and I'm in Ward 1. And my comment is more in the form of questions that I know you won't be able to answer in response, but I want to just throw them out there. What percentage of the budget is dedicated to ADA implementation, remediation, and general compliance across all departments? And then also, is there a staff position included for a dedicated and responsive ADA coordinator or liaison who will have the capacity to not only assist the city with ADA compliance, but also proactively build community relationships and build bridges across the current gaps between city government and residents with disabilities? This is critical to move away from the city's current model of disability inclusion, which has leaned heavily on legal compliance, and help us move forward in meeting our community's goals of fostering true belonging and inclusivity of those of us with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Thank you for your questions. And I'll just let you know that there is a budget amendment it's available online from Councillor Jordan that addresses an ADA coordinator. So certainly there'll be conversation during council deliberations on Wednesday that get to your questions. Okay. Any additional public comment on this agenda item? All right, not seeing any. And again, we're not taking a vote tonight. And so I will ask Councillor Savage, as chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, to put these motions on the floor, and then we'll send this back to committee.
Thank you. And at the request of the mayor, I am not going to read all of these tonight. I'm just going to move that we put the motions listed under 6.3 to item 6.8 on the floor, and we will read them into the record Wednesday.
Okay. Sending this item, sending this item back to committee for Wednesday, August 12th. Okay, excellent.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Sure.
Yeah, I think for the sake of the public information here, maximum outreach transparency, I think they should be read into the record to include the numbers involved and what's all being asked of us come August 17th.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councillor Campbell. We did check with our city clerk and recorder to see if they needed to actually be read on the floor tonight. They don't. If that is the preference of the council, and I'll look to President Nugent for your response to that point of order. But for point of order is normally to correct the record, and I will tell you the record is correct. And you can ask for clarification from our clerk and recorder, Claire Trimble, if you prefer.
There's no legal requirement that we need to read the motions to put them on the floor, just to continue to work in committee and come back to public hearing. And Council Vice President Savage mentioned that they'll all be read on the floor next week, but they're attached to the agenda tonight. They're attached to the agenda for Wednesday, and there will be for next week as well. I mean, I don't actually care if we read them or not. There's just 2.5 pages of motions. I don't think we need to do it more than once on the floor.
Mr. Campbell, do you want some clarification from the clerk and recorder?
That's fine, I withdraw.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Again, I'll note that all of the motions are listed on the agenda and corresponding information available on the city's website. They will be read into onto the floor during the public hearing. The next public hearing. Okay, that does wrap up fiscal year 27's presentation. Is this a question that you have for the next agenda item? Is this for this agenda item? Okay. Councillor Anderson.
Thanks so much. Also, just to point out that on Monday night, the 17th, when we go to vote, Ms. Trimble will read out the various things we will be voting on. And so it will get read into the record several times between now and then, and whatever budget amendments we do or do not make on Wednesday may actually affect the outcome of the numbers, which is why they'll be read for a final time on Monday, the 17th.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Appreciate that. All right. We'll move on to new business. We have one item under new business. It's 7.1, waiver of Missoula Municipal Code, Chapter 9.3, noise control for TDS at Burlington and Russell for a project sponsored by MDT. So, who's presenting this evening for the staff?
That would be me, Bert Smead with Troy Monroe's department in Public Works Mobility.
Thank you, Mr. Smead.
No problem. 1 moment. I'm going to bring that up. So per MDT requirements, they have allowed TDS to cross Russell Street, but they want them to do it at night in order to not disrupt traffic flow during the day. And as part of our standards and requirements, we investigated, or they submitted the request, and we investigated whether or not they would have any disturbance in residential areas. And when we were doing our calculations, we realized that there is a residential area, these apartments that are within that are within 500 feet. And so this is a motion to allow TDS to exceed the noise requirements for one night in order to get their infrastructure across Russell Street and to minimize impact to citizens and commerce.
Mr. Speed, is that the conclusion of your staff report?
Yes, ma'am, that is it.
Okay. All right, so we've got a pretty straightforward staff presentation on this new business item. Questions from council? Questions from council? All right, I'm not seeing any. Councilor Campbell?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. I might have missed it. It's just a one-night affair, or how many nights are we looking at?
It's just one night.
Thank you. And Councilor Krask?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious if there's any information about what if there's some maybe comparable noise levels of what the current noise ordinance is versus what the installation of the fiber might be.
I don't have Chapter 9 up right now, but I believe we do have a representative from TDS in attendance. He might have more information.
Do we have a representative from TDS that's able to come up and help answer that question? Please come on up, and if you would say your name for the record, please. Thank you.
I'm Jim Harlan. I'm the construction manager for TDS. I didn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No worries at all. My question is just what the kind of estimated noise levels might be during that evening, like if there's a comparison of what that might be like for the residents of the apartment.
Well, usually we're running right on the verge during daytime of your noise ordinance now. We're running below that, but there is a chance if we have to pull out what they call a suck vac and vac out a pothole or anything, that noise level is going to go up. And that's for getting under utilities so we're not hitting them, potholing the highway, all that. But that noise level will go up. As far as a dB level, I'm sorry, I can't quote that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You bet.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Harlan. Thank you for your question. It looks like we've got the ordinance on screen here, so we'll just give a minute for Mr. Smead to add some additional context to your question.
So I actually went and pulled up Chapter 9. So during the evening and night, in commercial areas, we have a limitation of 60 and 55 decibels relative. And then in residential areas, we have a decibel level of 55 and 50 decibels. That would be comparable to a diesel engine on a large truck running, that kind of equipment. And as Jim stated previously, the noise generated by this equipment falls well within our standards for the daytime, but as you can see, it will likely exceed that at night.
Thank you, Mr. Smead. Councilor Krask, does that answer your question? Okay, great. Councilor McCoy. No, I'm sorry, Councilor Campbell. Oh, almost. Nope, you're all good? Okay, Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
This is for the gentleman with TDS. And first of all, thank you for being here tonight. It's extremely helpful to have your input. I was just curious if you have an idea of is this going to take the entire night? Like, how long do you think the project might take?
On most road shots, we can be done within 4 hours, but we need the whole night just in case we run into a problem at depths or any of that. We have to live by MDOT rules. We have to be 42 inches under. We have to pothole down to the utilities, make sure we're going to be under them, not hit them anyway across there. So that does take time. And then we have to set up traffic control and be in where it's at, where it's 4 lanes. We have to move that traffic control in order to keep our locator safe going across the road. So it can take up to 8 hours. And we could hit our ground. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. It sure does. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And Councilor Krask.
Yeah, thank you. This is probably a question for staff. I'm curious if there's any sort of noticing of neighbors or the residents within this zone prior to this taking place.
So the way our regulation is written, the city does not issue notices, but TDS does have a program in place for door knockers, signs, hangers, that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any additional questions from council? Nope. All right, not seeing any. We will hear a main motion on this, and I would assume this is in Chair Becerra's space as Public Works, please.
All right. I move that we approve a waiver to MMC 9.30 entitled Noise Control to permit relief from specified levels during a project with TDS Utility to complete a project to install a new fiber optic main line underneath South Russell Street at the intersection of Burlington and Russell beginning August 11th of 2026.
All right, thank you, Councillor Becerra. So the motion is on the floor, and we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Public comment on this agenda item. Anybody in the room? Not seeing anybody in the room. How about online? Anybody online? Okay. No public comment on this agenda item, so we'll bring it back to council deliberation. Any additional questions from council or any council comments? Councillor Krask?
Sorry, I just have one more question. This is, if this is voted on tonight and approved, then that work will start tomorrow evening? Is that what that August 11th means?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. The TDS had submitted this 2 weeks ago, and they've scheduled the equipment and the traffic control with Poteet Construction in order to try and be in place and ready for when this was approved.
Yeah, Bert, traffic control is going to take a little bit longer, it sounds like. So we can put something out to you, Bert, when this is going to take place. And to answer whoever asked the notification question, we can re-door hang to let everybody know. I have no problem with that, just to put an extra one out there.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Thank you, Mr. Smead. Any additional questions? Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, in light of that information, if we need to tweak our recommended motion to cover like a 24-hour period or some variable there.
Yeah, it's a reasonable point.
Imagine.
That's a reasonable point. Mr. Harlan, can you confirm what dates? Is there a date range? Could you just provide us some additional information on the expected date of implementation?
We were expected to do it on the 11th, but with Poteet, who is our traffic control contractor, of course, being busy doing traffic control for MDOT and all other contractors, I can't guarantee you the 11th is going to happen. What I can do is get word out to all of you of when it will happen. I have a hard time getting Poteet to nail down to do our traffic control because they are so busy.
Do you anticipate it being this week?
Yes.
Okay. So we can probably provide a date range. And I'm wondering, and it is, just to confirm, it is only the course of one evening, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Whatever date that is.
Well, yes, ma'am. Hopefully barring no problems. I mean, we don't know what's under there.
Right. Understood. Understood. Councillor Campbell, do you have a suggestion for a friendly amendment by chance?
I'd have to give it a little bit of thought.
Okay.
You know, I would just say work to be completed by August. That's pretty good latitude. You know, if we were looking at August 11th to begin with, I mean, that's middle of the week rather than a weekend. I think we should probably keep it middle of the week to stay consistent there, but you know, may put a deadline. I'm just spitballing a number, August 31st.
Okay. So let's put that out there as a friendly amendment to Councillor Becerra. Councillor Becerra, did you hear Councillor Campbell's friendly amendment, which is gives latitude to complete this work by the end of August, August 31st?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I was going to suggest that we just give the authority to our public works staff. So the motion would just read as determined or as authorized by Public Works Department, because then they're going to be in communication and know when this can be implemented. But whatever offers that latitude, I think it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Campbell, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, it's fine to me. Just want to create a situation where it's not looming out there, definitely.
Right.
If it works, the staff and proper notice is given, we do the door hangers and everything.
Yeah, I want to cross there as
through
quickly as
with
possible.
notice. I think that's fine.
I bet. How about if folks feel comfortable, how about we do both? I think it's knowing that you need some latitude, but knowing that we want to be able to give as much direction and assuredness to the neighborhood as possible. How about if we amend the recommended motion to notify our public works point of contact, so Mr. Smead, and then with a date certain to be complete by August 31st. Does that give you enough latitude?
Perfect.
Councillor Campbell, Councillor Becerra, does that work for you both?
Yes.
Works for me.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So without any objection, that's a friendly amendment. I see that. And so that's a friendly amendment to the motion. Councillor Jordan.
I was hoping to make a comment. Is it the right time?
Indeed. Let's see. We are, yes, you may. Thank you. Let me check where we're at. Yes.
Yeah, look, I just wanted to thank Councillor Krask for asking about the notification, and a big thanks to you folks for being willing to put that notification up again. It's really helpful, and I appreciate the extra effort. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Harlan. I think we're good to go. The motion has been amended. We are in council deliberation, and so if there's any additional questions or comments from council members, we certainly can hear some more now. All right, we do have an amended motion on the floor. Ms. Trimble, do you need anything for, okay, you've got that amended motion. Great. Okay, I think we can go ahead and do a roll call vote. Thank you.
All right, voting this evening to approve a waiver to MMC 9.30 entitled Noise Control to permit relief from specified levels during a project with TDS Utility to complete a project to install a new fiber optic main line underneath South Russell Street at the intersection of Burlington and Russell after notifying Public Works staff after a date is determined to complete the work. Beginning with Campbell.
Yes.
Krask.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
McCoy.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Monton.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
And Becerra.
Yes.
And that passes unanimously.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the great conversation and good questions, and thanks for coming down this evening. All right. Appreciate you, yes, notifying residents and your good work. Thank you. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda were approved in City Council committees prior to being placed on this consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud, so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda, and then we'll invite community comment on these items before we vote. So Ms. Trimble, take it away.
All right. On this evening's consent agenda, we will begin with a motion to ratify accounts payable or claims for checks dated August 4th, 2026, in the amount of $1,981,035.88. We will continue with a motion to approve accounts payable or claims for checks dated August 11th, 2026, in the amount of $3,465,726.56. Next, we have a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a purchase and sale agreement and all related documents necessary to complete the acquisition of up to approximately 2.0 acres of property located at 2010 South 3rd Street West, Missoula, Montana, legally described as a portion of S20 T113N R19W to be determined through a boundary line relocation from CJB Properties LLC, Kurt Bowler, managing member for the development of Fire Station 6. The purchase price shall be $27 per square foot of the final surveyed property area, with a total acquisition cost not to exceed $2,352,040. Next up, we have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the second addendum to the 2023 interlocal agreement between the City of Missoula and Missoula County to complete the required construction and maintenance improvements of the regional stormwater system at the Missoula Development Park prior to transferring those parcels to the City of Missoula. We also have a motion to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Three Rivers Landworks LLC for $293,009.83 for construction services for the Missoula Development Park stormwater system. And our last item on the consent agenda this evening is a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement between Powell County, Mineral County, City of Missoula, Missoula County, Granite County, Butte, Silver Bow County, for the purpose of managing the 2025 Park to Passes Raise Planning Grant to conduct feasibility and conceptual design of a cross-country trail linking Butte to Idaho along the Great American Rail Trail.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Trimble. Appreciate that. Any public comment on any of the items on the consent agenda? Yes, please, come on up.
Hello? I'm not sure.
You can, yeah, it's on, and you can adjust that microphone via the stand, just to make it a little bit more comfortable on you there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gavin Ose. I'm here because I'd like to potentially propose excluding I believe it's 9.3, the fire station purchase, or the purchase of the land for the fire station. I do this not because I don't want that in my backyard. I'm asking that because of the removal of the Johnson Street shelter has radically altered the data that this fire station was based on, or at least the location of this fire station is based on. I believe that with a simple rerun of the model of whatever the consultancy was using for ascertaining the key location of that fire station, that a simple rerun with the most current data, i.e. after the shelter was closed, would potentially provide a improved location, or at least find a new location that would be more optimal given the actual call volume for emergency services through the Franklin, the Forward neighborhood, and at the surrounding areas. So that's what I wish. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening, Mr. Hose. I will just mention, I think this is probably a point of interest for council members and the public, and we had talked about this very thing. So we are joined tonight by Fire Chief Lonnie Rash and Assistant Chief John Petroff. Are either of you prepared to be able to speak on this topic in terms of the data associated with the site location relative to Johnson Street's closure? I'd invite you up now if I could, please. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Lonnie Rash, Fire Chief. Yes and no to the answer to that. And so taking a look at the data that I believe that was collected in that study was for a 5-year look back, which would have included 23 through probably 2019. So I'm not sure exactly when Johnson Street was opened. I don't know that it would have that significant of an impact, but we could do some more data with that because of where rural comes into the city and does auto mutual aid in that area, and we may not have used that call data. That being said is that I do anticipate that it would collect those numbers, but I right now have not reviewed those numbers specifically as to what percentage that would change. My sense is it probably doesn't change dramatically based on the call volume of the totality of those years of service, but I can't answer that in certainty.
That's reasonable. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And you might as well stay there because I have a feeling. No? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciated that. Councillor Anderson?
Well, yes, Madam Mayor, I was actually just going to comment to provide some
on this
more context.
particular item. Sure,
yes.
Please go ahead. You bet.
Yeah. So appreciate the point about looking at it over 5 years, because it did actually predate the opening of Johnson, and Johnson wasn't, when it very first became online, wasn't open year round like it was towards the end. And so the numbers did sort of take into account. And what was really interesting when the presentation came in and talked about kind of the call volume, and you saw all of it plotted on a map, you really did see a significant hole in the middle of our city with the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood and not really having call coverage. And one of the things that this station does is not only help provide coverage for that neighborhood, but the system wide, because calls are, you want to stay in district when possible, but that's not always the case. And so that was one of the big key points that we were trying to make during the levy, that it wasn't necessarily for a specific neighborhood, but for the system wide in general. And that so many times Station 4 was having to come across the river, which if you've driven up and down Reserve at, some points in time, that is a pretty, gets pretty narrow. And so this would hopefully allow for Station 4 to stay more often north of the river, and this station to serve kind of south of the river in that part of the city.
Yeah, so I think there's the donut that's in there that we could see with how the city is formed. And it was to try and ensure that Station 1 and Station 4, which were taking the bulk of the calls north, would have relief doing that. And so it was to keep them in their first due district more often than not. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for allowing me to ask that question. And I realize that I did not ask a council member to separate this item outside of the consent agenda. Please, thank you for allowing me to indulge in gathering that additional information based on that question. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. So any additional public comment on the consent agenda? Not seeing any in the room, and I'll just check online. Not seeing any hands raised from members of the public for the consent agenda. So I will bring it back to council to see if there are any abstentions or if there is a desire to separate any of the items on the consent agenda. And Councilor Anderson, yep, your hand's down. Okay, great. Anything else? Any other separations or any abstentions? Okay. Then not hearing any of the consent agenda, we can take a voice vote on that, please. Thank you.
Right, voting on this evening's consent agenda, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? And that passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Hose for coming down and asking the question. And I do want to invite you to introduce yourself to the leadership of Missoula Fire Department this evening. I think it would be a nice opportunity to make that connection if you're in the neighborhood there. All right. That does wrap up our consent agenda. And so our regular business, we have none. Let me just double check that before. Yep, we have no regular business. So we will go to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Public comment for items that are not on the agenda.
Robert Dunlap, 2316 West Kent. Earlier in the evening, I heard something about the 27 budget with sewer or stormwater improvement on Eaton. As you may know, currently at least 1/5 of Eaton is completely gone. New sidewalks have been put in. We're waiting for the road to be surfaced. I would hate to think that somewhere in the planning process, these new improvements that we're talking about won't mean that we have to redig that street again.
Thank you for your questions, Mr. Dunlap. I would hate to give you the wrong information and respond to that, but that is some information that we certainly can follow up. I don't know that there's anybody on with Public Works that can speak to that. I certainly know they take traffic flow and access seriously, and I know you've been putting up with a lot there recently with a lot of construction in that area. And I know we won't be digging up the work that we've already done. I would anticipate there being some road closures here and there. Any other public comment? Any other public comment?
Hi, Carrie Schreiber, Southgate Triangle Leadership Team. As you all know, the construction at Midtown Commons Phase 1 began last week. Just to give an idea of what that's looking like right now, there's these huge, huge mounds of wood fill that they've dug up in order to lay bedrock in order to be able to build a road. So that was a remediation that MRI knew that we needed when we purchased the property. And at that time, it was expected to be $900,000 just for that piece of the infrastructure. We know there's another 10 million in infrastructure that the public will also be paying for in that process. And we've been talking a lot about that there's going to be some, gosh, my brain isn't working. The math on it is that for 20 townhouses, that's about $50,000 a door in order to just get the ground buildable. So that's some of the money the public is spending. I just see such a contrast in how carefully we look at some items of budget and then just how vague, especially these MRI costs end up being. This Wednesday, Southgate Triangle will be hosting an ice cream social at Boyd Park at 7 p.m. And Friday, Let's Improve Reserve Street is a community conversation that meets on Zoom at 9 a.m. The July 31st meeting is available to review if anybody wants to see. That was a community conversation about the budget. And this Friday at 9 a.m., my group, not the Southgate Triangle Leadership Team, but the Rooted in Environmental Justice community advocates will be presenting, and the title of that is Missoula Residents Sue City of Missoula for More Transparency. And we've got 24 people signed up interested to attend that, which is a strong number. And I know that you all get invited to those meetings all the time. They really are a great opportunity for more community conversation, and I invite you all to come hear our presentation on Friday. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitations, Ms. Schreiber. Thanks for your comments. All right, additional public comment for items that are not on the agenda. I'm not seeing any in the room. I'm not seeing any hands raised online. Anybody online? Anybody online for public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Not seeing any there. Then that wraps up our public comment for items that are not on the agenda. And that brings us to nearly the end of our agenda here. Communications from the mayor. I have been talking a lot tonight, but we haven't had a chance to meet since the devastating fires in the Spokane area. And our chief, Lonnie Rash, hails from that area most recently, and so this is quite personal, I think, for Chief Rash in particular, but also, you know, for many of us that have family and friends in that area, and just the devastation that has ensued from what is assumed to be arson, which is just absolutely unspeakable. But regardless of human intent or not, we know that most wildfires are caused by human beings. Some are caused by lightning. Some are caused from other causes. I just want to extend my heartfelt, sincere grief to the people that have lost so much in that area, and my sincere appreciation to the first responders and to the many community members, firefighters, and others in that area that are continuing to help those folks navigate through a very difficult time. We've talked about wildfire smoke in this room a number of times, and I will again point people to Climate Smart Missoula. They've got some really helpful information for ways in which you can help clean and purify indoor air. There is an inexpensive do-it-yourself version of an air purifier using a box fan and a MERV 13 air filter. And just something to think about, if you can tuck that into your bedroom at night while you're sleeping, really help improve respiratory type of stuff. It is going to be a long road yet for all of us with this air quality, and so just encourage people to take good care and all of that. And that is the extent of my communication and comments this evening. Looking forward to budget deliberations with the council on Wednesday. And I will then turn it over to Council President Nugent.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll pass tonight.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Krask.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Missoula Parks and Rec, who are running kids programs. My daughter got to participate in her first Park and Rec camp last week, and those staff members are working so hard day in and day out in the heat and in the smoke, and making contingency plans for the contingency plans. And they just deserve all the kudos and all the respect. They are just operating at max capacity. They are making every day so fun for kids, and the childcare that they provide is such an essential service in our community. We are so fortunate to have the robust programming that we have and to have the people running the programs that we have. I think if anybody sees anybody out there, any kids camps at the park, just give those staff members huge thanks and let them know your appreciation for what they do, because I think in this time in the middle of August when it's hot and it's smoky and they've been working day in and day out since June, it can get really hard. And so I think even just some positive words or shout out would be really, really lovely. And I'm just really grateful for the work that they all do in our community. So
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Appreciate that, Councilor. Councilor Cheryl.
Thanks for that, Betsy. I just wanted to say, because we weren't making comments about the budget tonight, and I'm not going to make a comment about the budget, but the budget is a process. And so I'm just reminding the public that it is a process of the mayor giving us the budget, us looking at it, us hearing from all the departments, us digging into the numbers, seeing the amendments, debating those amendments, and really the bulk of the next step starts on Wednesday. So it was a little quiet, from all of us up here, but there's a reason for that. We're just kind of at this first step, and we'll be digging into it. Looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Cheryl. Councilor Jones.
I'll pass, thanks.
You bet. Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just really quickly, I just wanted to give the gentleman who commented on the fire station placement some color from my perspective. I've spent a lot of time in the fire world. I spent my first 10 years, not in structure fire, but wildland fire and ship and aviation fire. And I really think this location of this fire station is good, and that the data, I understand the Johnson Street shelter point, and I appreciate you bringing it forward. But when I look at the totality of our stations, it really looks like this is a good location, and it gives really good access for deployment. Using Third to get to Reserve or Russell or up Johnson Street, you just really couldn't ask for a better deployment path. So that's why I was in favor of that this evening. And then just cross your fingers, y'all. There's some rain in the forecast for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We might get a reprieve. After many years of fighting wildland fire, I wouldn't count on it, but it's in the forecast. It's staying there, so ideally we'll get a reprieve. That's all I got.
Pray for rain. Thank you, Councilor McCoy. Councilor Anderson.
As a summer sun bunny, I normally don't pray for rain, but I am definitely asking for all that. And again, want to thank you and echo your comments about our folks in Spokane. And my sister lives there, and she is on the volunteer fire department, her and her husband, in this little county, and it is taking all hands on deck. And so I've always said it takes all of us showing up in various ways to make our community work, some big, some small. Obviously, the folks at Missoula Fire do it day in and day out, but there are people trying to show up in small ways all over. And just that's what makes our community so great. So just want to acknowledge that and thank everyone for their thoughts and prayers. And it's not just in, unfortunately, Spokane. It's happening, if you look at the fire maps, all over the West and in other countries. And like you said, so many of them are man-made or man-caused, not unintentionally sometimes, but it just, think back to all of the training I got as a kid at summer camp from Smokey the Bear about, making sure that the fires are out and really observing. Right now we're in stage 2 fire restrictions. So that adds additional, and I think it's important that, the people who are putting these and enforcing these are not doing it because they don't want people to be out there recreating and having fun, because they themselves want to be out there doing that. They're doing that because they understand the ramifications of that and how just, one careless mistake can have such devastating consequences. So just please ask folks to be a little extra careful, a little more mindful, and to pay attention to the various restrictions that are in place, and that even with the rain that's hopefully coming, will most likely be in place well into the fall. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for the reminder. Just note that we are under stage 2 fire restrictions. If your neighbor is mowing the lawn early in the morning, it is because they cannot after 1 p.m. So thank you for your patience. All right, Councillor Milson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll pass tonight.
All right, you bet. And Councillor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make a quick comment for any of our business owners that are tuning in tonight. This Wednesday on August 12th from 6:30 to 8, the Transparent Election Initiative is hosting a Montana Business Roundtable at GoodWorks Ventures, which is at 129 West Alder Street. And they're going to be walking through I-194, which is known as the Montana Plan, which is headed to the November ballot. Just as a quick synopsis, the I-194 is a statewide measure, and it's not something that's coming before council, but it will change how businesses across Montana can participate in campaign donations and spending. It would limit corporations, nonprofits, LLCs, and trade associations from donating or spending on candidate parties or ballot issues, while individual donors could still give personally. Supporters describe it as putting this decision back in the hands of voters and as a state-level way to push back on Citizens United, which opened the door to the dark money we've seen poured into elections by the millions and even billions. Opponents of this measure include some of our chambers of commerce, and they argue it would limit a business's ability to advocate collectively and also not addressing spending by wealthy individuals. But I-194 has drawn support from folks across the political spectrum. It's not red or blue, and it's not meant to be. It's about how our elections get funded. So just a reminder, it's open to any business owner. It's this Wednesday. There's no RSVP. Come as you are, come with your questions, and there are multiple events, in-person events in other cities, and there will also be a webinar later on this month. And I just wanted to encourage business owners to check it out. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments this evening and invitation. Councillor Jordan, Councillor Ponton.
Thanks, Mayor Davis. There wasn't a very tidy place to put comments, so I'll just make a quick one here, specific to budget earlier. But I've had a lot of conversations with folks about budget, about taxes, and I think there's some understandable misconceptions. So if you're somebody who's interested in this, I just was going to recommend as a jumping off point to, in addition to what's on the city's website, take a look at your own property tax bill. I obviously live in the city and live in a very typical home, and I pulled my own current property tax bill, and 54% of what I pay this year goes to the county and state and local schools. If you look at what goes to the city's general fund, it's about 27% of what I paid. And out of that slice, 2/3 go to just 2 departments, fire and police. So I think it's helpful to look at real world examples. So definitely use that as a jumping off point if it's something you're interested in. That being said, I'm looking forward to Wednesday as well. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Ponton. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll pass.
All righty. Thank you. Councillor Savage.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Sure, you bet. Online, Councillor Becerra.
Thank you. Like my colleague, Ms. Krask, I also wanted to publicly recognize our Parks and Rec Department for all they're doing to quickly pivot all their summer camps, given the air quality that we're seeing right now. They do an incredible job. So I just wanted to say kudos to them on keeping our kids entertained and well taken care of given the conditions that we're in right now. And speaking of that, I also want to mention that I have been in touch with Adrian Beck with Missoula Emergency Management Office, and we are coordinating an opportunity to bring to council an update on what her office does, and how to be better prepared in case of a wildfire emergency. So I would invite members of the public to stay tuned and maybe join us for that conversation. It's not scheduled yet, but we're working on it. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councilor Becerra. Really appreciate the multiple council members recognizing our Parks and Rec team. There's nothing like having to pivot with a bunch of 3-year-olds, and our team is really set to be able to have some creative solutions, and so appreciate that recognition. Thanks so much. Our staff members are our public servants, as are elected officials. So thank you all for your service. Thanks for members of the public for coming down tonight. And with that, I will adjourn at 8:15 p.m.